Ralston, you grew Gary V's TikTok from 300,000 to over 3.5 million followers in just 3 months. Then you also helped take Alex and Elia Hormozy from about 1 million to over 11 million followers. Then you went out on your own and put a 6-hour course on YouTube for free on how to build a personal brand. Unfortunately, you don't have 6 hours. You have 20 minutes to teach a solo founder that doesn't have a huge content team or crazy budget how to build a personal brand. What survives those 6 hours?
Well, first off, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And I want to add some quick clarification. I was a core integral part in growing those brands, but I want to be very clear that the brands grow because of the credibility and uniqueness of the individual. And so the first thing for anybody here who's trying to grow their own personal brand is we need to think through, why would anybody want to listen to us? And this kind of brings us to a fork in the road, which is, are you the student or the expert? And I have to give a caveat. Everyone should always be a student. We always want to be learning and stuff like that, right? Like I'm not saying that. I'm saying I identify students as, you have not done the thing yet. The thing that your audience that you're building wants to accomplish, you haven't done it yet. You're on the journey of doing and accomplishing that. Okay. Now, the expert, you have done it. You have been there and done the thing that your audience wants to do. The analogy that I like to give is, do you think that if I have never climbed Mount Everest, that I can teach people how to climb Mount Everest? Probably not. Okay. But what I could do is, every time that I attempt, and as I'm preparing and training for it, I could give people insight into what I'm doing to prepare. If I go and try to summit it and I only make it halfway, I could share what I did wrong that caused me to not reach the mountaintop yet, right? And so I'd be sharing my journey of getting to the mountaintop. If I'm an expert, that means I have already climbed Everest, and I'm now teaching people how I climbed it and how they can use what I'm teaching to climb it themselves. And so that's the first thing that we need to figure out, is, which one are we? Because the worst thing in the world is if you are a student pretending to be an expert. It will never work out in the long term for you. And so that's usually where I like people to start, especially given the context that you just gave me.
Let's say this founder has already reputation, has something behind it, has client results, has years of expertise, but doesn't have what, for example, Alex had, like a huge team to assemble in order to build this content. Once that step that you mentioned is already established, they are the expert, they have the reputation, what do they do next?
Well, if you have the credibility behind you, I think before you start trying to amplify your personal brand, you need to figure out why you're doing this. And so I have 4 questions that I call the brand journey framework that we have to answer, because we can never determine whether things are working or not if we've never defined what working is. And all working means is moving us closer to our desired outcome. So let's figure out what that desired outcome is. The first question in the brand journey framework starts with the end goal in mind. And the question is, what is your desired outcome? What do you want to have happen off the back of your personal brand? AKA, what makes this a W? What makes it a win worth all of the effort? Because it's a lot of effort to build your personal brand. And what I want to make sure is super clear, that I think some people misunderstand when I walk through the brand journey framework, is I want you to be selfish with this. What is your selfish desire? Are you wanting to speak on stages more? Are you wanting to write a book? Do you want to attract a certain type of client? Are there people in your niche, in your industry, that you admire, that you don't have access to right now, but you want to be able to talk with them, have dinner with them? Whatever your selfish desire is, I want you to articulate what that is. The second question here that we need to answer is, in order to achieve that outcome, what would I need to be known for? I think you and I, Gabe, both know that a lot of great things in our life happen because of our reputation, what we're known for. Okay. And so what would I need to be known for that outcome to occur? The third question is, and it starts becoming a little bit more tangible now, what do I need to do in order to have that reputation, to be known for that thing, to get the outcome I want? We don't just get known for shit and build a reputation by talking. We got to do shit and then talk about that shit. Okay. The fourth and final question is usually a list. In order to do the thing, to get known for the thing, to achieve the outcome I desire, what do I need to learn? And in a lot of scenarios, this is going to be a list of things that we have to learn before we can go do the thing, right? For me, I had to learn how to get over my insecurities of being on camera. I had to learn how to take these concepts that I was teaching clients, teaching my teams, and learn how to teach them in a YouTube centric way that worked in a 2026 going into 2027 environment, right? And so there's all these things that we have to learn. If you do the brand journey framework, you get more clarity on where you are going and what you need to do to get there with your personal brand than any other exercise that I could walk anybody through.
Often that first question where most people got stuck, like they have zero clarity on the direction. And what exercises can you do in order to uncover that? Because often people will say, oh, I'm just in for the money. I just want to put food on the table. Other might have like bigger goals. But I love the fact that you mentioned the selfish word there, because indeed, like you often think, oh, I want to change the world. Most of us won't change the world.
Well, it depends on how we view changing the world. I actually, funny enough that you said that. I never talk about this, but a big reason that I told Trevor that I wanted to make content in the beginning is that if we can have an impact, not on every person in the world, but if we can impact the influencers, if we can influence the influencers to build their personal brands in a different way, in a way that serves more than takes, gives more than asks, then we will have a slight little impact on changing the world, right? And so I think you change the world by selecting a select group of individuals that you impact. And by impacting those individuals, they can go on and impact more people. And that's how change happens. And so I actually, as audacious as it may sound, that is part of my goal. I could have easily built, not easily, but I could have built my business without ever making content. I had, to your point earlier, I had enough coming out from my in-house role previously. I have enough reputation. I have enough people who know what I have done that I could have just scaled through word of mouth and warm intros, and that would have been fine. But I never would have been able to accomplish my altruistic goal, which is having the impact on how personal branding is done. And by doing that, if I can impact these big names who influence many, like millions of people by proxy, I'm impacting millions of people.
How you split between the selfish and the altruistic goal in order to make sure that you don't overdo it on one side or on another?
Typically, the selfish goal is the thing that funds the altruistic one. I have to prioritize the business first. Like, let's be real here. Anyone who knows me personally knows that, like, I wish that I could just do everything for free. I wish I could do everything that I do inside of my business for free for people. Unfortunately, that's not scalable. It's not possible. And I have bills to pay and employees to pay, and they got bills to pay, right? And so, like, there's the realities. And so, in order for me to be able to give the most amount that I can give away for free, I have to build a good, strong business that funds the ability to do that. I invest a lot. We have a big project that we're going to be dropping in the new year that I have invested 6 figures into, and we're going to be releasing it for free. But that is only because I have built a business and monetized that business, and I've prioritized that. Even though externally it probably looks like, my God, how does this guy continue to give away so much free value? I'm doing more work on the back end for the business to be able to fund doing things like that. And so in that tension, we have to realize, for a lot of us, some people are in a scenario where they don't need the money, but I do. In order to do the altruistic goal and help the world the tiny little way that I want, the tiny little impact that I can have, I have to build a business that can fund that.
Nice. I love how you put it, because indeed, like if you don't do it that way, it's almost impossible to impact more people. And it's funny enough, a few years ago, I had a guy in the podcast which walk for water to build the fountains for kids in Africa. And he mentioned to me, like, if I would have worked all those years, like walking from Denmark to Kenya, I would have gathered way more money in order to help rather than just raising money. So, yeah. And when it comes to the second one, because what to be known for, it's quite a tricky question for a lot of us. How did you truly find that?
So I'll give you one of my, because I have multiple outcomes that I want. And so what I encourage people who have multiple outcomes they desire is do the brand journey framework for each one of those individual outcomes. One of the outcomes that I want is I want to be able to work with the highest level individuals in any industry, any niche. I want to work with a scientist, a poet, a filmmaker, a musician, a business person. I've done a lot of business women and men's brands, but I haven't worked with a scientist. Well, I haven't really worked really closely with a musician, right? And so I know I want to work with the best in the world in different fields. So what do I need to be known for? Well, I need to be known as somebody who can build a prolific personal brand that can get real meaningful results for the individual in my select pocket. But within that, I need to also be known as someone who can be trusted. If you're a top individual in a field, you have a lot of confidential information. You have a lot to lose bringing more people into your world. And in order for me to do what I do well, I need to be in your world. And so I need to be trusted. And so why do you think I have been so hardcore about establishing a core pillar and association of my personal brand being optimizing for trust and telling the truth? Because I know the people that I want to work with and aspire to work with 10 years from now, that's what they care the most about. And so it's once you determine what your desired outcome is, it's like, what reputation would I need to achieve that? If I was known as an untrustworthy individual, do you think potentially a politician down the road or a scientist is going to want to work with me? A filmmaker or an actress? They're not going to want to do that because they're not going to be able to trust me. And so it's knowing what your desired outcome is and then thinking through. And what I find is actually taking Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger's frame, like I forget what he calls it, but basically you're thinking in the opposite. So it's like, instead of thinking, what do I need to be known for? Maybe if you're struggling with that, think of what, if I'm known for this, what would make it impossible to achieve my outcome? Right? That sometimes is easier for people. And you write out what makes it impossible to achieve this. And then what are the opposites? Okay, cool. That's what I need to be known for. Awesome. We've answered the question.
In your case, like what do you need to learn in order to arrive at your goal?
So for me, I need to be known for being trustworthy and having executed building really prolific personal brands in the business space that get meaningful results. I need to do that, right? But then if I'm going to work outside of business, I need to learn the differences in the audience expectations and desires in different industries. So I'm going to need to learn what the difference is in how the audience consumes content from a poet, to use that example, versus an entrepreneur, along with many other things that I need to learn.
And that I think it's the big question of us all. Like, how do you know that? Like, how do you understand your audience through content that you put out there, apart from the tradition, like how they react to it through, I don't know, comments, messages, and so on?
For me, I learn by doing. And so the real is if I want to work with a, let's say there's like a top scientist that has been making all these crazy discoveries here in the States, and they don't really have a personal brand or anything, but they're starting to go on podcasts and they want to build their personal brand. If I want to work with them, I should probably, before working with them, work with somebody who isn't as big and as established, and maybe even potentially do it for free to learn that industry, that niche, and then apply those learnings to a client. That's literally how I would do this.
Got it. And now I have another constraint for our presumptive solo founder. How someone can split their time between building a business, running the business, and create content, research as well, and work with others in order to understand the audience and so on.
You just have to reverse engineer your availability. So there's no one size fits all. It's basically, instead of hearing some fucking guru on Instagram tell you what your cadence needs to be, you need to figure out what is realistic for me right now, given how much time I have available on my calendar. Like, I've worked for people who dedicate less than 2 minutes a week to making content. I've also worked with people who dedicate 24 hours a week to making content, and both equally work. You just need to understand that the more you put in, the more you will get out, like anything in life, right? Like if you're going to exercise for 20 minutes a week, you're going to be more healthy than somebody who doesn't, but you're probably not going to go win the CrossFit Games next year, right? And so understanding that you need to temper your expectations based on the amount of inputs you're able to put in, but pick something realistic and increase over time. For me, when I started, I knew I have no idea what my life was going to look like building a business now. I really didn't know. And so I committed to something that was realistic. My first year of uploading content to YouTube, I only did one video a month. One. And here's the beautiful thing. Everyone needs to pick a realistic cadence and then pick an interval in which they increase that cadence. So year 2 on YouTube, we're doing 2 videos a month, right? Next year, year 3, I don't think we'll do 4 videos a month. I don't think we'll do 3, but I think we'll probably average 2.5 a month. Okay. Which means we'll basically end up putting out like about 36 videos or so next year. And so it'll probably be more like 30, but you can always increase this cadence over time. The problem is when somebody commits to a cadence that is unrealistic and unsustainable, they burn out and then they give up on this thing entirely 6 months in.
Yeah, that's the trap, right? But I want to go back to the example that you gave. Realistically, what can you achieve with 2 minutes a week?
Not much. You have to take the Gary V model where you're purely being documented. That was Gary, for example. Like Gary was the one that I could maybe get 2 minutes a week with for making specific content. Everything else was just captured. It was him in a meeting. It was him meeting with somebody, him talking to a fan on the street, right? Him on a call in the car, him going live on Instagram, like things like that. It was very rare that he would actually allocate time to make content specifically. And that worked really well. What you're seeing is doing that alone is a lot more difficult 2026 going into 2027 than it was in 2017, 2018. Still doable, but not going to be nearly as effective. Why? Because you're not making content native to each of the platforms. Back in 2017, you could make one piece of content, post it everywhere, and it would do well. Now, all of the platforms have fragmented and have completely different psychologies and preferences of the viewer. Something that works on TikTok might not work on Instagram. Something that works on YouTube Shorts might not work on LinkedIn.
Indeed. And one more thing, views. Are they or aren't they important?
They are and they are not. The one of the best things, I've gotten so much from Gary. That man I owe a lot to him. One of the things that I learned from him that was so helpful for me is this analogy. And I'm not an engineer, so I don't know if this is totally true, but it's a great analogy. He talks about the structural integrity of a bridge. It's strong, not because of the pillars in the middle, but because of the tension being pulled from opposite directions. And the most successful individuals are able to hold 2 opposing ideas at the same time, and they're able to live in that tension. And so the tension that I'm giving everybody here to manage is views matter and views don't fucking matter at all. Here's why. You don't optimize for views. You optimize for conversions. If you have a business, views don't fucking pay your bills. You won't pay your employees with views. You won't pay your own bills with views. Okay? You pay it with sales. Now, in the beginning, nobody's going to fucking click on anything. And so your only proxy of how you get directionally correct and move forward towards getting to the point where you get clicks, where you get sales, is by tracking views. That is how you know what your work or making is working, is quality as the audience identifies quality, not as we subjectively call it. Okay. And so in the beginning, if you're starting off, the only thing that you can track is views. All of your videos are going to get 96 views, and then one of them is going to get 259. And you do more of the 259. As long as the 259 is in line with the customer that you want to serve. Okay. And so in the beginning, views are very important. Still to this day, I care about views. I track them because views are a way to measure whether or not we're being successful on the platform. But the thing that I care way more about than success on the platform is success off platform. But the only way I get that is if I am getting attention on the platform. So I track views, but I optimize for conversions.
And that's one of the reasons why I assume that a 6 hours video that has over 1 million also converts, because that builds a lot of trust. Our 6 hours of content. And guys, if you enjoy these 20 minutes, you'll love that video. So you can find it here. Thank you, Caleb. Thank you so much for sharing this info with us. And guys, if this conversation made you think differently about building your brand, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if these are your kind of conversation, consider subscribing. I'm Gabe Marushka, and this was Authority in the Wild. Until next one, pura vida.